On our morning show today from WRCO, we are talking about Senior Life Solutions. It is Mental Health Month. And in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, we're taking time to maybe focus on some issues here and break down some stigmas. In the studio with us is Haley Fosterling, Tiffany Olson, and Christine Olson talking about the subject. Good to have you back here, Haley. We'll start with you.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So let's talk about this. Why is it important to have a month set aside to recognize these things?
Well, the stigma is a large part of it, continuing to break that down, and it's just should be treated just as important as physical health issues. Mental health should really be recognized more. So,
are there some things that you do through the hospital that maybe are some special things to recognize that this month?
Yeah. So, to begin with, we're from Senior Life, so we run intensive outpatient group therapy up there for generally 65 and older people struggling with any mental health concerns. Since it's intensive, we do about 3 days a week starting out and then go down from there. But some activities we're doing this month is like we have a bingo event coming up at the community center. We usually give out little treats and stuff for mental health to really spread the word. Also, starting June, we are going to be doing a grief support group. Christine, Tiffany, and I, we're going to do that at the community center. It's going to be June 25th from 5:30 to 6:30. And then also Safe Talk is in June as well, June 18th. And that's a Wednesday, and it's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Important that we talk about these things. Mental health, maybe you can talk about that. It's kind of a wide subject there. But what do you look at as good mental health?
I'm actually going to kick this over to the therapist.
Okay, we'll do that then. Who would like to tackle that? Christine or Tiffany?
Well, yeah, we can tag team that.
Okay.
Well, what is good mental health is a really good question. I mean, I think it's different for everyone, but we in our program specifically in mental health treatment, we look at a whole array of different things, including good sleep, good socialization,
mood presentation,
moods, good, like feel, we don't have to feel happy every day. That's, I think, a misconception about happiness, right? But if we feel down and depressed more often than we do not, that's a sign that maybe we need some more help. If we're feeling pretty anxious, we're stuck in our heads too much, and that impacts our daily functioning. Things like getting chores done and errands and meeting with people that we usually met with and feeling productive. A lot of those kinds of things is really all-encompassing when it comes to mental health, along with mindfulness and other activities like that.
Tiffany, does it come down sometimes to loneliness? I mean, is that one of the aspects?
Yes, loneliness is actually a huge piece of mental health. Isolation is one of the measurements actually for some various diagnoses. Symptom presentation overall is kind of what professionals may be trying to measure in regards to the severity of different diagnoses and different mental health aspects. But loneliness is a very important piece, and along with some of the other things that we try to utilize and improve is that feeling of isolation and loneliness overall.
One of the things that I talk about with younger people is the fact that, a lot of people are on their phones, a lot of people, mobile devices. Is that the case for older Americans, or how do you look at it?
I think that can actually be one of the things that leads to that increased feeling maybe of loneliness. We still might be interacting with various people on different degrees, but if you're not able to access some of those different platforms or different tools that technology has to offer these days, you're kind of missing out on some of those ways to connect. And I agree with you that some of the younger generations really use that, or if you're more tech savvy, you're able to use that more easily, it's more accessible to get that feeling of connection. And if that isn't something that you utilize frequently, it's in a way a missed opportunity for connection, and that leads to that increased feeling of loneliness. And it's important to remember that not all folks at any age, utilize that or get that same fulfillment of connection, via text message or via Facebook posts, for example. So having some insight into what those people closest to you really get that feedback from, and what fills their cup up, so to speak, as for connection.
Yeah, a lot of people, maybe they aren't going to be able to talk to their kids unless they do get connected, right, Christine?
Right. Yeah, no, I think yes, technology helps us stay connected, but it definitely has created a world where we're much more separated and busy, and it's easier to lose contact and not have as frequent check-ins with our loved ones and things like that. Or the check-in isn't really a check-in, right? It's not, like she said, it's not something that's really meaningful to that person.
How often do you guys have group sessions then? How often do you meet with folks in your group?
Well, we both have two different programs, or two different groups, but they both are 3 days a week, but everyone kind of comes at different, but up to 3 days a week, yes.
How do they get connected with you then? What's the best way, the proper channels?
They can just give us a call. They can self-refer. They can reach out and say, "Heard about you on WRCO. Let's hear more about that." Sometimes it comes from a doctor referral, a family member, a neighbor, or just reaching out to get more information, like to share about what the program is. I think generally there's still a little bit of a misconception as to what it is or why you would even consider coming to Senior Life. I think when a lot of individuals think about a mental health intensive program, it kind of paints a different picture. But Senior Life Solutions is an excellent program geared towards this senior population to address various symptom presentations. So it might be, like family moved away, or they lost a loved one and they're just kind of struggling through that grief process, navigating life changes, different things. But really, we want to be super accessible. It's a very unique program in that we return phone calls. Haley or I or Christine are able to go out and meet individuals in the community where they might be more comfortable to just have a general conversation about what this program is. So the referral avenue is extremely open, can touch base with us in any way, and then we just go from there based on the individual's needs.
And when you look at this, certainly it's an opportunity for people to come out and maybe get healthier in some ways. But probably the first step is the hardest, like getting there, like that first meeting, isn't it, Christine?
Yeah, definitely. We talk about that a lot. We always say if we can just get in front of that person and meet them, it definitely starts to build some comfort and support and feeling like they're in a space that is safe, because it is really scary. And especially if we suffer from depression and anxiety, people tend to be apprehensive and isolated and pretty reserved about that stuff. So, the easiest thing is a referral, but the hardest step sometimes is coming in and making that first contact. But we like to think that once you get there, it starts to feel a little bit easier after that.
With a group, then you make new friends, right?
That too, yeah. The group is very inviting and very welcoming and supportive, and most likely they are going through something or went through something a lot like what yourself is going through, and that immediately brings in a lot of support and comfort in the group room. Yeah.
Haley, what are some ways that we in the community can get involved and help recognize this, or I guess be aware of some things?
Just looking out for well-being of your peers or friends. If you notice something, always kind of being upfront with them and asking if there's an issue or if you can help them in any way. Making proper referrals if you think there's a safety risk in general. So really just paying attention to others' well-being.
Right. And encourage them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they need care, encourage them that, you just got to make the first step, like we said before. So
we'll pose the question of this. What are some symptoms, Tiffany or Christine, that we should or could be looking for?
Yeah, I think kind of what we were talking about earlier. You're going to probably see someone who is much more secluded, especially with depression. I think it's easy to miss, though, but a lot of us tend to isolate and stop reaching out maybe as often and stop coming around, stop seeing them at events and activities they were usually at. Changes in health also, and changes in I guess it's at activity level, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I can add to that. I think like a person's overall presentation, sometimes we are very different people to maybe individuals close to us, and then perhaps at work we're, kind of going on as normal or presenting for whatever our normal is, so to speak. But those feelings of like decreased interest is one. So I used to do, XYZ, and now I'm not doing that anymore. Or you're picking up on that on other people in your life. The sleep is obviously a huge one. I think just in general, symptom-wise, sometimes because this can kind of be mental health in general can kind of sneak up on you, and we still go through the day-to-day motions, and you might not even realize, like, you don't feel like you did, what we hear a lot is this is just what it's like to age. But really there's so many different things to kind of target and address as far as symptoms to have a person feeling their best and living their best, and that's just really what everyone deserves. It does present so differently for every individual, and that's what's important to know. And I think we would really like to get out to the community is that it's not always that classic picture of depression or anxiety. We have many extremely well-functioning individuals participating in our group, and there might just be aspects of their life that have really been impacting them in a certain way. And that's what we can kind of hone in on and target to help them make those improvements.
Can this be seasonal as well?
Yeah, seasonal depression is definitely a common thing that our patients experience. But I think also, especially with seniors, I think it starts to become like year round, right? They're not working. They have a loss of activity. They've had a lot of death in their lives. So they're feeling just overall way more isolated. But yeah, I think seasonal depression, we're seeing definitely an improvement in mood right now because it is beautiful outside, and it feels nice to actually walk outside. So yes, seasonal depression, especially here in Wisconsin, we have to take that into consideration as well.
Are there some triggers as well that can maybe set people off that way?
For seasonal depression or just in general? Yeah, a lot of things we see. A trauma event, right? And trauma is so general. So anything that feels life-threatening, or we've witnessed something traumatic like that, death, grief, holidays. Finances. That's a big one too. Yeah, finances. When you're when you lose a common source of income or on a fixed income, that can be very, very stressful. Changes in family relationships, family, friends, there's conflict, right? And sometimes we don't know how to navigate that. And that weighs really heavy. Where we live, our environment makes a big difference too. If there's changes there, definitely a trigger.
What about physically, as you look at that, Tiffany, like aches and pains, arthritis? Some things where I don't really feel like doing anything as a result, right?
Right, yeah, and chronic pain and some of those other lovely things that tend to come with age, like you said, arthritis, change in mobility, change in balance. A lot of those physical things really are tied pretty closely to our sense of purpose, to our feeling of being capable and able and independent. And it's really challenging to navigate those things. And you might be wanting to, put on this front that you're managing these changes okay. But on the inside, it's tough. It's not easy for anybody to navigate those changes. So supporting individuals through that, and that is one of the magical pieces of this program and the group aspect, is in some way individuals are either supporting other people in their life through similar changes, or they're navigating it themselves. And the wraparound and support that the group members give to each other is, you just can't beat that.
When you two are hosting it, what do you do? Some stand-up comedy or something, or what do you do?
We usually start with that.
I was gonna say we got some jokesters in our group, so you have to dish it out back too. So, yeah, humor is a great source of connection, and it really helps, I think, improve comfortability in the group room. And a lot of us don't necessarily get to laugh, or a lot of our patients don't have laughter in their day. But so humor is important. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of different things in our group setting. Just general emotion check-in. I don't think there's many places you go in and talk about how you're feeling, right? Which they're usually uncomfortable about that. But
Right.
we build comfortability with talking about our emotions, and we do a lot of different education about different coping skills and things that we can use, but also just a good support system to get advice and reassurance.
And creating that awareness, like sometimes you hear, well, I didn't even realize I got to this point, or I didn't even realize that wasn't me, that was this depression, or that was my anxiety. And it's so cool, I guess, to see those connections made of like, oh, that is because of this. And it's like, we try to make those connections because we are all so well versed in our physical health. Like, oh, it's actually arthritis in my ankle that's causing this pain. That makes sense. How can I address it to reduce the pain and the problem coming from this in my ankle? And it's this very similar way of, this is this diagnosis, this is this symptom. If we have some separation and we create some awareness, provide education to, it doesn't have to be like this, or this is why, X, Y, Z. And then it's kind of like these light bulb moments of hope. And across the board, that feeling of hope is, that's magical.
Yeah, gaining insight is really great. Yeah, and it doesn't have to define you. It's not you. You can work with this.
How much of our aches and pains can be like mental though, and not physical? I mean, that happens too, right?
Well, and we didn't even talk about that, but we call them like somatic symptoms. But that's our body response to especially anxiety and stress. Yeah, a lot of folks, if they feel like they have a lot of neck, jaw, shoulder tension, a lot of times that isn't anything to do with physical health. It could actually be anxiety, stomach discomfort, and those kinds of things. Certainly, we don't want you to think that that's what it is and rule out other things. But yeah, physical health is impacted by our mental health.
Interesting topic. If someone is listening today, Haley, and they can relate to some of these things, I mean, what is the first step someone should do if they're struggling right now with their mental health?
Well, first off, with our age group, obviously, if looking for resources, if you're struggling with that isolation, the age group we work with, if you're struggling with that isolation, reaching out for different group activities, the community center has activities they can go to and participate in, trying to break that cycle of isolation. Younger adults, same thing. Really try to connect with others, and if you're isolating or have increased excessive worry, getting the appropriate help you need. Don't let it persist on. Really try to get some help right away.
How much do you work with in conjunction with Health and Human Services?
Some we communicate. We've gone to some meetings and sat down with them and discussed what our services are, what they have that could help us out with our patients. So just some collaboration like that.
Things like that to do. And then what are some other things that, maybe you can be helpful with? Maybe if a family member is experiencing something that may be out of the ordinary.
We always want to be an open ear, right? So if you yourself are struggling, talking to someone, I think could be helpful. Hopefully that's someone you can trust and will support you, because likely, I think it's like statistically 1 in 5 U.S. adults suffer from mental illness each year. So there's a likelihood that the other person is going to be able to understand what you're going through, or if they don't, hopefully they support you. So just reaching out to anyone is great. But yeah, also we encourage everyone to talk to their primary care doctor, because they also, they can address mental health as well. If you don't know, I think the ADRC or the county is always a great starting point, a launching point to more services, or your doctor or the community center, like Haley said. I'm trying to think if I'm missing other good areas.
I think locally they've put together some really great websites for various resources. There's multiple kind of hotlines or those text lines to kind of address generationally or technology, just to be accessible in the moment, which is a really great resource. If it's out of typical business hours and you can't get a person on the phone, there are some of these other options to access resources, or that first step of exploring what you might be able to check out to address some of those symptoms you're experiencing. But for this program specifically, it's a phone call. We're downstairs in the lower level of the basement. So we kind of have our own little area. It's set up to be that private space, and we're accessible there. If you're in the hospital and you want to come see it and ask some questions, always welcome to do that. But just to make a phone call and go from there.
A safe space, right? Mm-hmm. In other words.
Yeah, definitely. We really have a beautiful space down there. Like Christine said, we run two groups. So we have 2 group rooms. And some wonderful staff in our office. Have to give them a shout out, Robin Anderson and Sarah Hicks. But at any time, and we really try to stress that to our current and former patients, give us a call. We're all here. That's why we are here, to be able to either guide you to the next resource, answer questions, or just provide that support.
Oh, as far as insurance, is that something that insurances recognize if you need to have a referral?
Yeah, so we generally accept any insurance. It goes by case basis. Once I get a referral, I usually try to reach out to a person within 24 hours. A lot of times I won't describe a lot over the phone. Maybe we meet in person and we get to know each other. Because like Christine said, it's hard to open up on the phone with a person you have no idea who is. So getting in person, talking about the program, but then, we look at their insurance and go from there. Mm-hmm. Then our next step, we have a psychiatrist on board with us. So we can get them in front of a psychiatrist to see if they're appropriate for the program. I do an intake assessment as well, where I just see, are you having any symptoms? Are you in need of immediate help in any way? And things like that.
In terms of other things, dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that, that's a whole other ball game. But I'm guessing you assess that too to see where that patient should go, right?
Yeah, we do. I'll usually do some sort of mental check to make sure that, first off, if you're coming to our program, you can take from it. You can take the skills you learn and use it in your daily life. But in that instance as well, sometimes those dementia symptoms like forgetfulness might not be that, and might be some depression that's been a long time coming, So forgetfulness is very common with depression symptoms, a flat affect, things like that.
Hard to explain sometimes because you see someone and you think, well, they have everything going for them. They got a good family, they have grandchildren, and those kind of things. That doesn't always bode for happiness, does it, Christine?
No. Yeah, we talk about comparison is some of the worst things you can do to yourself. We see it with the youth and social media, but also adults and older adults. I hear people talk about other people all the time. And I always say, we don't know what they're going through. A lot of us from the outside looking in, we have things going on that look great, but internally isn't. So comparison is some of the worst things you can do. I always say, if you're going to judge yourself against anything, judge yourself against, yourself and the better version of yourself, or a time that you went through something really hard and how did you get through that. But comparing yourself to others is definitely not good. Yeah, we don't actually see what's going on when we do that. I think our patients always talk about kind of that you can't judge a book by its cover. They have all funny sayings about that too. So it's a good reminder about, we don't know what's going on with someone.
You probably hear a lot of those old sayings, don't you?
We learn a lot. Yeah, I want to... Oh, yeah, so I'm going to shout out to somebody. One of our favorites is, we hear a lot of funny ones. Like, I'm going to start writing a book about it. The frog one. What is it? You can't judge how far a frog will hop by just looking at it. Something like that. I was like, okay, I love it. Yeah, they say we learn funny things.
A lot of good old ones, but they make some sense lots of times.
They do. They're very profound a lot of times, actually. Yeah.
Another avenue that, suicide is certainly a topic, and especially we could do a whole show on that as well. But you're trying to keep people out of those situations, Tiffany.
Right, we are. That is obviously one of the top things that we are screening for, assessing for, providing resources and information around. And that kind of goes back to that sense of hope in some way, finding ways to, find that again or build that sense of hope, purpose, and connection. I mean, those are all just huge tools to combat suicide overall. but it's definitely a priority for, I would say, all mental health programs and resources, and it's why I think our community, the Richland Hospital, and organizations across our country are really targeting suicide prevention.
If someone is listening, and they're feeling suicidal, are there some avenues that they can go? You suggest?
Yeah, so if they're in that mindset, the first line of defense would be to call 911. There's other, like I said, automatic numbers. I believe 988 is the other common one specific to mental health. But even if you're accessing local resources by calling 911, our local services have different steps in place to address that need and provide that service and support, because at the end of the day, all of these wonderful organizations and first responders come together to serve and protect a person, and not only their physical health but their mental health as well.
And I want to add that some people don't want to share, right, that they're having those thoughts because it's very taboo. There's a lot of stigma around suicide. And I mean, May, although it's Mental Health Awareness Month, but it's about reducing the stigma in general. But if you're experiencing those thoughts, it's not abnormal. I don't want someone to think that it is taboo. Just because you sometimes don't want to wake up in the morning doesn't mean that you have to be locked away. I think people think that if I express this, someone's going to put me in a room with no windows, right, and lock me away. But that's not the case at all. Plenty of people are dealing with these thoughts and live normal lives, and we hope that they can get some more support through various mental health programs.
Mm-hmm. And if you are somebody who's got some health issues, and we talk a little bit about dementia and those kind of things, but it seems to me that comes along faster if you're not social and if you're not, doing these kind of things, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's so many different research projects out there that talk about that, but I would agree, kind of anecdotally, yeah, you see decline much, much faster when someone has no purpose and is completely isolated every day.
A lot of aging baby boomers, those born, through 1964, I think, is where the baby boomers cut off. But right now, you're right in that age group with a lot of the people that you're working with.
We are. I mean, we say there's plenty of patients that would be appropriate for our program in this community, right? Yeah, with the boomers and the amount of people that suffer from mental illness, statistically, yeah, we could be surplus full of patients, but we're not. So, yeah, we always have room for more.
Good deal. So what's the first step if somebody is interested, again, Haley, in the program? Is there anything that we've talked about today?
Yeah, so like we mentioned, you can do a self-referral. Anybody can refer. You can refer yourself. Someone can refer you. I mean, if you see a friend that's struggling, we're just a call away. That being said, also seeing your primary doctor. We all work in the same building generally. If you doctor here or other doctors in other places, they can refer as well. You don't have to have any prior diagnoses at all. We'll just assess if you have the symptomology to participate, and that's why we have a psychiatrist on board to get those steps going. So, yeah.
It's important to talk about it, isn't it?
Yep.
And you guys all seem very approachable, so nobody should be scared to call you and talk to you, right?
We're not too scary.
Thanks for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. In honor of Mental Health Awareness Month here, we thank Haley Fosterling, Tiffany Olson, and Christine Olson from the Richland Hospital's Senior Life Solutions for being our guests.